Alright everyone, welcome back to another video. Last time we left off with the Red Army advancing and liberating Kiev, or Kharkov. I almost said Kiev. We're now on to Russian counteroffensive scores on Ukraine front. August 23rd to 30th, 1943. Germans retreat along the whole Russian front. During the last days of August, the Red Army improved its position along a vast front from the Smolensk area to the Sea of Azov. Progress was especially good on the Kharkov front, where, on August 27th, the Russians reoccupied Koteleva, 60 miles west of Kharkov. Meanwhile, our victorious allies pressed on to Taganrog, the important Sea of Azov port. The pictures show left a German outside a blazing farmstead. We can see there are huge flames, obviously billowing out, and we can see the German sitting with the goofiest pose, walking past the burning building. And on the right here is a Russian family returns home. So if this is where their home once stood, that's unfortunate, and it kind of looks like it is. The kid's father is probably either passed or is in the war right now fighting. We can only hope that he survived or survives and got back to them, but who's to say? Allied pressure increases in the North and South Pacific. August 15th to 20th, 1943. Allies advance in the Pacific. After landings, which began on August 15th, the island of Kiska in the North Pacific was retaken by the United States and Canadian forces. The loss of Attu by the Japanese had jeopardized the enemy's supply lines and rendered enemy positions on Kiska hazardous, and Japanese troops evacuated the island under the cover of fog. Far south in the Southwest Pacific, the Allies made good progress in New Guinea, employing their superiority in air to smash the important airfields of Lae so thoroughly that the Japanese were unable to make use of them for any effective retaliation. This terrific softening of Lae was carried out systematically by U.S. heavy bombers, liberators, and fortresses in preparation for invasion. The Allies were determined to secure the great advantage of the harbor and airfields of Lae, left bombs bursting on a Japanese airfield at Lae. Yeah, we can see the runway, or the runways, the bombs going down, blowing it up, doing as much damage as possible to try to break up the runways. On the top here, the United States troops land on Kiska Island. Yeah, we can see them landing, retaking, putting down supplies, things like that. And then below, 2 midget submarines abandoned by the Japanese. Yeah, and so these are really tiny. I mean, they're huge, but they're tiny submarines that the Japanese would use to, well, not just them, but many people would use to do damage to targets that otherwise above water ships couldn't do, surface ships. So, but these midget submarines proved to be pretty effective. Allies occupy an island in the North Pacific. August 15th, 1943. Launching attack on Kiska. Members of the Joint American-Canadian Forces look over the rail of their landing craft towards comrades climbing the barren slopes contiguous to the harbor in which the attack was launched against Kiska at dawn, only to discover that the Japanese had fled under the cover of fog. Yeah, the Japanese were getting out as fast as they could because they knew the Allies were coming, and they said, we're leaving. We're not going to stay here and deal with the attack when there's no real advantage here, we're not going to win. Coast Guardmen come ashore at Kishka, August 1943. Amphibious operations. An LST landing ship tanks with open bow doors is shown in operation during the invasion of Kiska. In this photograph by a U.S. Coast Guard officer whose ship participated in the unopposed occupation of this important Japanese-held base in the Aleutian Islands. Yeah, we can see all this stuff. Yeah, and for them, obviously, this is real nice to have an unopposed landing and things like that because it allows them to just reoccupy the island. And yeah, they used some resources, but not too many. And also, here's the ship that they were talking about. But they didn't use too many, thankfully, and so it was just easy reoccupation, and that was that. Coast Guardmen participate in invasion operations in the Aleutians. August 15th, 1943. Coming ashore at Kiska. The bow doors of 2 LSTs have been disgorged, their cargoes of men and equipment yawn open at Kiska. Hitherto a secret, this photograph by a United States Coast Guard officer was among the first to be released, showing the open bow doors of LSTs. The opening bow doors are probably the most revolutionary development in amphibious operations in modern wartime. The ships were so constructed that they could practically land on any selected spot when the bow doors would open and men and equipment roll off as from a bridge and without any delay. It is interesting to think that these were some of the first released to the public on how these doors open, because before it was just a secret, which, I mean, obviously you want to keep a secret for any enemies that could be reading your paper and getting them back. But yeah, it is interesting, and yeah, these things were very, very revolutionary and helpful, and they're one of those technologies that's kind of not forgotten, but not talked about as much during this war. Mostly because there's a lot of other technologies that were invented that are maybe a little bit more interesting for people. German fears invasion mount as fourth year ends. August 1943. Fortress Wall of Europe. The German nation had become very apprehensive about Allied invasion, and leading German speakers boasted that their fortifications and coast defense were on the coasts of the Atlantic and the Mediterranean were impregnable. Parties of press correspondence were conducted over these defenses and returned to bolster up morale by repeating these boasts and assuring the German people that a successful invasion was impossible. Although their defenses were immensely strong, the Germans' claim that they could be equally strong along the whole coastline was ridiculous. These defenses included natural caverns on the coast, which the Germans had made invulnerable to bombing attacks from air, which is this one here, this giant, basically it's like a giant trench almost, similar to the First World War. And then on the right here, they're gigantic guns in immensely strong positions, right here. Massed anti-tank obstacles, roadblocks, entrenchments, and minefields. Huge bomb-proof shelters of steel and concrete were erected to house U-boats. Many of these positions were built by labor from the occupied countries. So, yeah, it is true, though, if you think about it. The idea that it is impregnable to get into Europe from the Mediterranean to the Atlantic is just ridiculous. There is no way that they are that prepared. They just can't be. Italy, it's not as defended as they would like to believe. But France, the Atlantic wall was pretty bolstered up. Rommel made sure of that. But it really amounts to not very much in the end. Invasion of Italy steals the spotlight as the fourth year ends. September 2nd, 1943. Next Mediterranean phase. British troops at Catania, ready for the invasion of the Italian mainland. And we can see all them boys all ready to go to war in Italy. And Italy will be invaded. And it will be taken. And thankfully, the people of Italy help throw off the yoke of a fascist Italy. And we'll leave off with this page here from this book. And tune in tomorrow for book 3. I do have book 3, so. But we'll leave off this quote in this nice picture from one Mr. Churchill on a speech that he gave September 6, 1943. Now those who sowed the wind are reaping the whirlwind. That's just a little title for this. But here's the quote. There is no halting place at this point. We have now reached a point in the journey where there can be no pause. We must go on. And go on they shall, all the way to Berlin. And with that, that's going to do it for this video. If you guys liked the video, leave a like. If you didn't, leave a comment. Tell me what I can improve on. I always appreciate your feedback. And as always, subscribe. It really does help out the channel. Thank you.